for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. Okay, so I'm just like, there were two trees, Adam. I mean, they told you don't eat of this one, you can eat of this other one. The other one was called Tree of Life, for crying out loud. I'm sorry, but Adam, what's up? You should have just eaten the Tree of Life. I mean, we would live forever. We don't have to mourn and bury anybody. The God didn't even warn him not to eat of it. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this is going to be us continuing our favorite book, the Bible. Hold on, please. Okay, cool. So just to recap, because I know last week was really crazy and I couldn't take anything, so to say, like we couldn't continue last week from where we stopped, which was chapter 1. So this is reminder. We divided chapter 1 into two parts. One about creating something. So our key story, I think it was around how things have evolved from knife to what's this other thing called, greater. Then to set up knives, then to greater, then of course to this very modern one I talked about. Yeah, so I'm just saying that there is always need for improvement of already created things that were already like invented by others. There's always room for innovativeness, so to speak. Okay, so today we are going to be dealing with chapter 2 of Genesis. So chapter 2 starts by telling us that God rested, right? Like after God created everything, he rested on the seventh day from all the works he had created. That's chapter 2 verse 2. So on this, for anybody that has not agreed, we can all agree, let's say so, that whatever religion we believe in rest, because I know everybody has a form of rest. Everybody observes a form of rest. It could be different. There's some people say God rested on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, whichever one you choose. The important part is that you have to rest. Okay, because God rested. I mean, He's the Almighty. And then still on chapter 2, verse 4 down starts with the details. So when I read this, right, I was just thinking this is like all these movies. Maybe this is where they got the inspiration from. So a movie will start and show you how the family is living happily or sadly or whatever they want to portray, or maybe there is a war in the country or something, and then suddenly they will now be like 2 years ago or 3 days ago or something or something like that. It will now show you how this thing came to be, you understand? Okay, so we've already been told in chapter 1 that God created man in his own image. He created him male and female, right? We've been told that. Now this is that detail, how God created man and woman. So we are told that so if you read down, you notice that God formed man from the dust of the ground, and breathed his breath into man's nostril, and man became a living being. So that's how man was finally created. Okay, so the Angola Garden of Eden was planted, and God put all kinds of tree there for food, and it was even like good for the eyes and pleasing to the eyes. So in the middle of this garden, in the very middle of the garden, God planted two other trees. One was the tree of life, and then the other one was the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And of course he put there was this river around it, watering for like rivers from four direction, right? One was even like giving them gold and other precious stones and everything. So this river was making sure the garden was well watered, and I would say to make it evergreen. You understand? So I feel like with those rivers running around it, the season will always be there, like the fruit will always be there, nothing will have to dry off. Let's say like this UK, that all the trees will have to get dried at some point and then come back to life at some point during spring, you understand? But in this case, everything stayed as it was. So then God told man, warned him that, look, do not eat okay. So in verse 16, he said, God commanded man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but verse 17 now, but you must not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. Okay, so I'm just like, there were two trees, Adam. I mean, they told you don't eat of this one, you can eat of this other one. The other one was called tree of life, for crying out loud. I'm sorry, but Adam, what's up? You should have just eaten the tree of life. I mean, we would live forever. We don't have to mourn and bury anybody. The God didn't even warn him not to eat of the tree of life. It was, do not eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Because I'm believing God. Of course, God has his timing. He says he makes everything beautiful in his time. We'll get to that, the portion that says that sometime in future, right? But God really has timing for everything. So I'm sure there was a time he wanted to reveal this thing to Adam, and maybe in a different way. But anywho, let's continue. So God now told him, of the two trees we were planted in the middle of the garden, God specifically told him not to eat one, which is the tree of good and evil. And then after he did that, God now saw that, oh, it's not good for man to be alone. Man was lonely. You remember, God had created, if you read it, you see that God had created all these other things and told Adam, or told the man, sorry, it wasn't called Adam yet. You're not seeing Adam anywhere there yet. So he told him to like take care of everything in the garden, name the animals, do everything, and whatever name it was called, that's what it would be called, right? So God had already said that. So that's in verse 19, that when he formed the animals. This is also how God formed the animals, formed the wild animals and all the birds. He brought them to man and told him to name him, and whatever he named him, that was what the animal was called. I believe that is still applicable till today, because at the end of the day, we humans, we are still the ones naming things, and whatever we name them, that's what sticks. That's how it stays. It just stays like that. So then the other thing is that after all this, God found that man was kind of lonely, and he had no suitable helper for him. So God now put man into a deep sleep and took out his rib and made a woman. So I know this is where men say women are the weaker vessel, because they just remove one rib to make a woman. But it's fine. We are not going to deal with that today. Anyway, so then when man woke up, he now saw the woman, and I'm believing he was really excited, because he said, wow, this is the bone of my bone and the flesh of my flesh, and she shall be called woman. And that's how the name stuck. I mean, God had already given him the permission to name everything, right? So when he named this wonderful being that God had created from his rib a woman, it had to stay. So, and then the two of them they were together. Okay, this is where the name came in the last verse. It says Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. So okay, then 24, very importantly, before I miss something and people call me out for it. So 24 says that this is why a man leaves his father and his mother and is united to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So meaning, when you have found out that your rib, like this is, that's why I mean men are still the ones that are supposed to go out there and look for their ribs. They are missing ribs, right? So when you find out that this is the rib, the bone of your bone, the flesh of your flesh, and you're able to call her your woman, let me put it like that, then the next verse says you should leave your father and your mother and be united and cleave to your wife, and then become one flesh with your wife. And then the last verse says that both of them were naked and they felt no shame. So I'm gonna let that sink. Think about it, and let me know if you have any question or any comment, or there is anything you feel was important that I missed in this particular one, and we can talk about it. Thank you so much. I'm hoping we'll take chapter 3 sooner, that will not have to drag it for too long. But yeah, that's where we end today. See you next time. Bye. Thank you.